Under green cliffs, a painful waterway is navigated by a lone man pushing forward in a craft designed for 3 of his 8 buddies. Pell has abducted and set out. The bearded man carried glowing weaponry and shield. The man arrives at his village, tells them about the ambush, and then organize a war party for the counter-attack. As people had lived on the property for a long time, their ancestors abandoned the European landscape and braved ancient times. Seas in the massive tundra, sunk deep into a world before untouched by humans. As generations passed, the divide between the two hemispheres grew. Both sides of the planet split in a constant ignorance of the other. Centuries have witnessed the ongoing death and birth of great empires and peoples, languages, prophecy, and faith. The Vikings of Scandinavia have devastated Europe, establishing camps on Iceland and Greenland. We have ended thousands of years of hemispheric separation. They soon slaughtered their aid Native American. This tiny group of Norsemen is led by Thorvald Erickson with his brother Leif, who had previously made landings on the American Ocean but did not encounter any native residents. Now, a crowd of native boats arrive into view. The Vikings gather to their ship for a cover after a staccato region of stone-head arrows on their high shields. The battle eventually ends. Native people sail away. However, a deadly arrow rises from the other side of the Thorvald Eriksson. He asks his men to lay him to rest in this strange land with a couple of crosses. Following the captain's final commands, his guy completed their missions and returned to the American colony built by the Leif Erickson and returned to Greenland in spring. There is a distant toll of iron and clouds of listless smoke as dragon boats sail down the water's edge. A man named Thorfinn has approached Leif Eriksson's settlement with a party of approximately 70 settlers, both Christian and pagan. It appears divine power has graced these seafaring people with a beached well from which to feed. They settle frequently, building sod homes for the long winter. One day out of the spring woods appear natives. Despite their initial fear of the Norse bull, they quickly open their sacks, presenting a warm plate from the local fauna and nodding towards the Norse. Karl explains how weapons are communicated through careful and bumping attempts. He refuses to trade his iron weapons and instead offers the milk of their livestock to the Native Americans, who take pleasures in the unusual beverage, trade using all of their pelts. Then they disappear again. Karl instructs his men to build a barrier around the settlement. Now people return in greater numbers during the fall with more plates. In this tense reunion, one Native American attempts to take an iron weapon, and a Viking strikes him dead. The other Native Americans flee, but Karl anticipates retaliation. He sends out his Norse warrior to lure them into the forest and then they ambush them. Now the Vikings scatter the Native Americans and leave a number of them dead in the woods. Now Karl's expedition remains at the settlement of the winter. Then they load their ships with American grapes and pelts and depart. This story comes directly from the Saga of the Greenlanders, one of two Icelandic sagas that record the Viking settlement of Greenland, leif Erickson to mainland America, and the Viking expedition to the American lands they called Markland, Helluland, and Vinland. The other, called the Saga of Eric the Red, tells them the same fundamental story with the important difference. Combines the expedition of Thorvald and Karl into one, records a massive battle in which Native Americans kill multiple fleeing Vikings, who are in turn only rescued when the brave woman Preter scares off the Native Americans by beating her exposed breast with a sword. Both sagas are the products of oral histories, probably first written down in the early 1200s. Each is clouded by medieval folklore, corpses reanimated to give prophecy, and disembodied voices guide the explorers in Eric's age. Thorvald is killed when a one-legged creature shoots an arrow into his groin. In Eric's age, Thorvald is killed when one-legged creature shoots an arrow into his groin. These stories are the relics of the closing of an age. As Viking clans coalesce into kingdom, the Scandinavian settlement on Greenland are abandoned, and the old tales of short-lived quests to a western land are redesigned. Compendium of rumor and fable to be told around the heart are carried far by the traveling merchant.
For the maiden bloodletting, surely your father never would have imagined it would be your blood. Such miserable luck, to die by the sword you helped forge.
It's innately around 1340 that a monk realized what he has heard of Markland. Further westward, there is another land named Markolora, where giant lives. In this land, there are buildings with such huge slabs of stone that nobody could build with them except huge giants. However, no sailor was ever able to know anything for sure, but this land are about its future. In 1492, the Vatican records that no news has come from Greenland, that country at the end of the world in 8 decades. Christopher Columbus reaches the Bahamas that same year. Scholars are led to doubt that the Vikings ever reached mainland North America, until in 1960, archaeologists in Newfoundland discovered mounded ruins, excavation resurfaced sword houses, and iron prog, and chopped wood recently dated to the year 1021. Here, the contemporaries of the Erickson brothers and Karl may have traded with indigenous. But after a handful of years, the mighty Vikings abandoned their colony, mysteriously retired from their efforts to expand their domain westward in a bountiful country. The tentative mapping of their expedition reveals that the Norse had likely met the ancestor of the beothuk, or Norse Native American, a people whose resistance may have been the death knell for these first European settlements in the America. Thus reads the saga of Eric the Red. Although the land was excellent, they could never live there in safety or freedom from fear because of the native inhabitants, so they made ready to leave the place and return home.
Bitter rivalry.
You can face each other as sworn enemies, or united as brothers. But a storm is brewing, and soon you will discover that even in this new era, one constant remains.